This scene is broken up into 4 phases, and these phases are also matched by blocking changes in the scene. How does David Fincher block a scene? So imagine you're a director, you've gotten a script, and it's your job to bring it to life, put it on the screen. We talk a lot about the kind of sexier parts of filmmaking, like cool camera angles and lighting and like cinematography, editing, etc. But a critical and less sexy part of it is just how you move your actors in a scene, how that choreography then interfaces with the editing, how it brings the script to life and punctuates certain beats, how it works with the camera placement and sound. All of that is like really important, and that's the director's job. And I feel like David Fincher, in my humble opinion, is a master at that. And this example from Fight Club, the chemical burn scene, has all of that firing on all cylinders. So I want to dive into it and do some analysis here.
It's nice that you bring it up because real quick, with a theater background, it's like there is one angle, so blocking is literally everything, right? But then in movies, we just think about like, oh, you just change where the camera is, whatever, right? And you don't appreciate how much blocking is actually going on often within a scene.
Exactly.
Yes. And how it connects with the beats of the script and all that stuff. It's so great. So just to lay out what we have here, I have a version of the script. There isn't the exact shooting script, I think, that they were using. And so I kind of recreated what I think it must have been on the day. So we have the script pages here. I have this beautiful, highly detailed overhead map of the room in which the scene takes place. Purple's Tyler, green is Jack. And we have the scene over here. And I'm going to just kind of scrub through and call out how all the pieces are working together to draw the audience's attention to the important parts of the story.
You're so cute.
This is what I've always wanted.
This is what I do for fun. This is early days lessons from the screenplay. It was just me doing this by myself. Okay, so we come out of the scene where they steal this fat. We start with close-ups, reorienting us into the scene, and then Tyler begins talking about as the fat renders.
As the fat renders, the tallow should float to the surface, like in Boy Scouts.
Hard to imagine you as a Boy Scout.
Okay, so already, if we look at the script, so we're thinking about how to bring this to life, there's a lot of kind of setup for the scene and sort of exposition about, he's going to talk about tallow hardens and nitroglycerin, and you add a little bit of this, and it creates lye, and blah, 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 blah. A way to sometimes do some analysis is just think of like, what's a different way you could have done this? You could have come in on just a wide shot of the two of them doing stuff. Brad Pitt stands in one place and just monologues all of this stuff. But instead, there are these beats in Tyler's lines, like in Boy Scouts, Dynamite, Ancient Peoples, which I'll talk to in a moment, that are punctuated by how he moves through the scene. So we start with the two of them. They're standing next to each other like Boy Scouts. So we have Brad Pitt move, which motivates this camera pan, which lets Edward Norton's line, hard to imagine you as a Boy Scout.
You as a Boy Scout.
Get thrown in there while we have this momentum happening. And so Tyler moves to the refrigerator, which affords us a chance to see the close-ups of what he's doing. And then he turns and hits a new mark, which is stepped away from the refrigerator. And here he's going to talk about once the tallow hardens, we skim off nitroglycerin, etc. So we're 2 lines in, basically, and he's already moved. The camera's moved. We're in like the 3rd or 4th setup. So it's taking something that could just be a long monologue, and it's adding punctuation, it's adding dynamics, it's making it fun. And also a thing to pay attention to is when things are moving quickly and then you stop, that draws attention. And when things are very slow and then you speed up, that draws attention. So moving, he stops,
Layer of glycerin.
And now it's time to pay attention.
If you add nitric acid, you got nitroglycerin. If you were then to add sodium nitro, dash the sawdust, you got dynamite.
And so again,
I love
on
this
that
look
moment,
here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so also because he's moving at that like dynamite line, that means there's a little bit of silence after that. So we get to hang on that and draws attention to, you've got dynamite. It affords this reaction shot you were just talking about, Brian, where we get to see Edward Norton doing this. And so just a tiny thing there, but just like even the Brad Pitt does this little like when he like in between his words.
Sawdust. You got dynamite.
Adds like a little rhythm and attention.
Literally
to it
never
there.
noticed that. Love it.
Yeah.
I know we're not actually talking about lighting, but just because it is a part of this, because you're panning the camera, right? So if you were only going to do this in one setup, you'd theoretically be hiding lights. And I'm sure there are some behind the camera and off screen. You can see the 180-degree line here. But there's also a ton of practical lights in the scene, which are they lighting the actors? Medium, who knows? But what they're doing is, again, it's adding all of this dimension to the background of the scene. It's creating the space. So we didn't start on a big wide, as you point out, Michael. We started kind of dropped in here like we're the third person standing at the stove or whatever. But we're able to see the entire space and the geography of it because of all the practical lights. And that's going to be important later that we understand the geography of it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, we don't need to go like into super detail, but so he moves from refrigerator, moves over to the sink. I think this is a really great example of blocking, though, again, where so what Tyler is saying here is
With enough soap, one could blow up just about anything.
Tyler was
with enough soap, one could blow up just about anything. That's important information. That's foreshadowing. That's stuff that's going to happen. You want that in the scene, but you don't want to hang a lantern on it necessarily. And so we're in a wider shot than we've been on before with Tyler. His back's to the camera. He's not looking at us. So the body language and the camera language is sort of saying like, this isn't important, but we're still getting the information. So again, just a subtle little thing like that I think is really important for the storytelling that's happening.
Yeah.
And so again, he moves around and then he kind of eventually arrives at his main like starting point, which is at the table. So also what's happening here is, so we've seen Tyler, he started here, and then he goes over to the thing, and then he goes over to here, and then he goes over to here. And Jack, Edward Norton's character, has been there the whole time. Tyler is driving the scene. Tyler is in control just through the blocking even, of like, he's the one moving, he's circling around Edward Norton. So that's setting up really who has the power in the scene, which is cool. And so here, we kind of park, and to your point, Trisha, here we have more of a wide shot, and we stay on the shot for longer. So we do get an orientation of the space and understand, here's the table, here's, where they are in the room, and that's going to matter because we're going to start moving down this table as the scene picks up.
I think even that slight camera motion, it's the first time the camera's really done that kind of jib sort of move, where it's moving on different axes. And that kind of signals to me we're settling in for like the meat of the scene now. That was like an intro, and now it's really starting.
Yeah, it's almost sitting down, and you get these low angles on the characters. Again, like we're the third person in the room, but we've like sat down to watch this now.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right, Alex. It is basically, this is all sort of set up for the scene that's kind of about to start here.
Or I guess the second person in the room, sorry. But
so yeah.
By the way, I had checked close-ups when he's pulling the stuff out of the fridge. I was like, does Tyler already have the chemical burn or not? But like, it's too hard to see.
Can't quite see. Okay, so we stand. We see Brad Pitt getting ready for things. We're seeing him put his glasses on, put his rubber gloves on. This is a acting thing, but he's punctuating some of his lines, even with the timing of like putting his glasses on, that I think is really cool.
Seep through the wood and ashes to create lye. This is lye, the crucial ingredient.
Like, to create lye, pop. This is lye. Da-da-da. Like, he's doing all these actions that's drawing attention to each of these words, which is really cool.
I feel like you're dissecting these things that I've felt but never intellectually pulled apart. And there's part of Tyler's cool, I think, is this rhythmic way he talks and the way 100%. He kind of he's so confident in his motions. They're punctuating every line he's saying.
Yeah, and I think the addition of these props is going to come back later because he's going to be like strategically throwing them off. And so giving your actors like business to play with and have that, give them things to use to punctuate their performances, I think is really smart. And Brad Pitt does a great job of that in here. So we're here. He sits down. Can I have your hand? Sure. And then we go into this really tight close-up, the first tight close-up that we've gotten for this kiss. And so obviously tight close-ups when things have been wider signal this is important. It's kind of a strange beat.
What is this?
This is a chemical burn.
And then we launch into the chemical burn. And so this scene, script-wise, is kind of broken up into 4 phases, as I identified. So we're going to have this first kind of setup part where we understand what is the scene about. The scene is about Tyler is trying to burn Edward Norton, make a point. Edward Norton is like, I don't want to be here, get me out. And Tyler's not going to let him get out. And so phase 1 is going to be setting that up. Phase 2 is going to be about Edward Norton trying to escape from the pain psychologically. Phase 3 is then going to be Tyler launching into like, no, this is my message. I'm preaching to you now. This is the point of it. And then it's all going to climax with, Tyler getting to the point and Edward Norton finally realizing it. And these phases in the script are also matched by like blocking changes in the scene as we move. So here in phase 1, we have just the setup of like, what are you doing? I'm giving you a scar. It's going to hurt like never before. And we see the first tactic that Jack is going to take, which is, I'm going to try to do meditation to escape from this pain.
Yes.
Stay with the pain. Don't shut this out. No! God! Look at your hand.
Okay. So we have the first big like movement there of the actors moving down the table, right? And so that's a repeated thing that we're going to see. So they start here and we move and we're going to move again and we're going to move again. So that first move,
Before we get too much into this, I also wanted to point out that Tyler sits first at the beginning. And there's a way to block this where he tells the narrator like, sit, and then he does this kind of like standing over him. The fact that Tyler sits first and then he sort of brings him down with him, there's sort of like an intimacy and almost kind of like a trust there. I just wanted to say that before we got too much into the meat of the scene here.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important call out. Like that's the kind of thing that you can give an actor, you know what's going to happen in the scene is you're going to eventually have his hand and you're going to be giving him this burn. What tactic do you want to use to draw him into this? And it could be a more forceful, like,
right.
Pointing, but instead, as you're saying, he invites him. He's creating this weird air of safety and comfort. And that's an interesting character choice that's in the script also of like how this character is written. He's inviting Edward Norton to have this experience that's going to be extremely painful. Okay, so we got our burn happening, we scoot down, and now we're in phase 2. So phase 2 is basically constantly Jack trying to use his mind palace and the guided meditation that he's learned at all these different, support groups to get away from the pain. And Tyler is just constantly being like, no, stay with the pain, be here, this is your life, it's happening right now. And so we can just watch this section really quick.
Look at your hand. The first soap was made from the ashes of heroes, like the first monkey shot into space. Without pain, without sacrifice, we would have nothing.
I tried not to think of the word serum or flesh.
Stop it! This is your pain. This is your burning hand. It's right here.
I'm going to my cave. I'm going to my cave. I'm going to find my power animal.
No! Don't deal with it the way those dead people do. Come on!
And so there's the physical blocking. They're still kind of in that same place, but there's editing happening, right? We're in Jack's mind. And so as he's picturing his cave, we're cutting away to the cave. We're cutting away to this forest, this, lush, beautiful forest. All that's called out in the script too, which is cool. Like, I like that that's, the script was thinking in those visuals. So that's really cool. We also have here the first discarding of props, basically. So throughout, Brad Pitt's like slamming to make a point about no, but he's also like throwing his gloves in this moment.
Find my power animal.
No! Don't deal with it the way those dead people do. Come on!
And so again, that's giving him something to do in this moment. Like if he was just standing there being like, no, you gotta blah, blah, blah. It's not as visceral. It's not as kinetic. So give him rubber gloves that he has to throw off at this point, which is really cool.
Just in terms of the power dynamic in the scene, the way that it's written and performed is so confident on Tyler's part, where you don't realize that the writing and the way it's being delivered all sort of build up to like almost, to your point, his lines are so confident. They are almost a lecture. They're almost like a recitation of like, I know this material backwards and forwards. I'm going to teach it to you now. And that creates this unspoken, he's done this before, right? Which we find out it's almost foreshadowing this, like, none of this is new for Tyler. He's been through this. He's done it. He understands it. He knows it. I'm very sorry, like the back of his hand. And that is what is going on in this scene that builds to the revelation we're about to get to. And so there'd be another way to play this scene where Tyler's making it up as he goes along, but that isn't what this is. And I think it just like lands on that point that we're going to get to where he holds up his own hand in a minute. Like, it's the only logical conclusion that he has walked this road before himself based on the way that it's being delivered. And again, blocked. And to your point, the power dynamic in the scene where he's throwing things and like doesn't care if stuff is being knocked over. This is his space. This is not the narrator's space. And so like the narrator is knocking stuff off, but, almost it seems worried about that fact or like, is interacting with the environment differently than Tyler is. It's really smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So to keep rolling, you're feeling premature enlightenment. Jack, narrator, Edward Norton's trying to escape, et cetera, and it gets to kind of the climax of this phase, which is Tyler saying, this is the greatest moment of your life, and you're off somewhere missing it. And so then we have another shift down the table, everything clinks.
Somewhere missing. I am not. Shut up. Our fathers were.
And so we have that big, loud, action, kinetic, and then the shut up and things get quiet for a moment and we refocus because now Tyler's in the listen to me. We're also moving into a little bit tighter close-ups here. So like before we were in like a little bit more medium and like we're getting a little bit tighter medium close-up here.
And that's with the change in lenses, right? We're kind of changing focal length.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Which kind of compresses the space also between the two characters, brings
Totally.
them closer.
Yes, right. Again, we have another moment where he can use his glasses to really emphasize the listen to me.
Listen to me. I have to consider the possibility that
The slap sounds or something.
Yeah.
All the sound design.
Yeah,
The
incredible.
glasses like hitting 18 things as they fall.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So this section, Tyler's getting to his point, which is basically like, screw God, screw damnation, like, so be it. We're the wanted children, whatever. There's another cool moment here where to emphasize the "we don't need him" line, we don't cut to a tighter shot, but Brad Pitt leans into a close up. So where is that? This is not the worst thing that can happen.
Yes.
we don't need him. We don't.
And so that's blocking too, right? So you have a shot, but within the shot, you can have your actors move into a close-up. That is a thing that you can do to emphasize all the stuff. And so all of that climaxes with the like, yeah, we don't need him, so be it. And then we have one last big slide down the thing.
So be it.
Okay, so I didn't want.
Listen.
And so this is Edward Norton at his most desperate. Like, I'm getting water. I get it, kind of, but like, I need to get out of here. And so Tyler's then, to wrap it up, is basically, there is a way out of this, right? He says you can run water over it. It'll make it worse, or you can neutralize it with vinegar, but you have to listen to me. And so with that, he can kind of finally get the Edward Norton characters like focus and make the final big like point, which is don't mute it, Michael, unmute it.
You have to give up. First you have to know, not fear, know that someday you're gonna die.
You don't know how this feels.
And then again, like we were saying at the beginning, quick things that then like lead to slowdowns. We've had this cacophony, this buildup, the slapping, the throwing, etc. for this last section when he's like trying to make his ultimate point of like, first you have to know, not fear, know that you're going to die. Things are quieter, things are more still. We're like on these shots longer, there's less editing, so it focuses the audience to this, and then we're getting this reveal, like you talked about, Trisha, of like, he's done this before, and he kind of gets to say his final, big summary statement.
It's only after we've lost everything that we're free to do anything.
Also point out that, those props on his hands and his face were useful for emphasizing beats, but they're also incredibly important to get rid of before you get to these shots. You need his hand, you need his hand exposed, and you don't want kind of goofy goggles on his face in that really intimate close up. So they're both serving a purpose kind of throughout, but also there's a functional purpose to getting rid of them for this end shot.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You're stripping these layers away metaphorically and all these different things. But yeah, then like you're saying, we need this shot. This is like the crux
this is
of
the
point
point
here. Yeah.
And they were doing a tiny thing of creating a little mystery at the beginning when he puts them on, right?
Right.
And so I think sometimes directors like to simplify scenes, and that means get rid of stage business, get rid of props. And the answer is often don't do that, because they can be so useful for a variety of different narrative purposes.
Right. Creating questions of like, why does he need to put these things on?
Yeah.
Right. You're about to find out. And so again, the end of the scene, it's much more quiet, more still. He grabs the vinegar, falls to the ground, and Tyler has his final line. You're one step closer to hitting bottom. So the scene is just like, it's just really good. And it just does such a great job of being like stupidly entertaining because of the sort of like relentless momentum, even in the setup period, right? Where Tyler's talking about tallow and like exposition because he's moving around, because the camera's swinging. In some ways, when I watch it, I'm not even paying attention consciously to the words that he's saying, but the whole package is creating the right headspace and the right, mood to then be ready to receive the rest of the scene. And so just the dynamics of that, of like, get us interested, give us the exposition, quiet down before we then launch into the cacophony of sliding down, the burning, the yelling, the slapping, the throwing, all the things that then funnels down to the quiet point, which is this final interaction. It's only after we've lost everything that we're free to do anything. This is what great directing can do.
Also, writing-wise, we're appreciating the structure of the scene too, right?
Absolutely.
We have the normal world, we have the inciting incident with the kiss, we have the midpoint where Tyler starts saying what he's doing, we have the crisis where, like you said, Jack is just like, needs to get out of there as soon as possible, but he has the solution, he just has to accept it, and then we have the resolution.
Yes.
So good.
So good. And that's the key, is like,
Scenes.
Don't just do style for no reason. Like, don't just add people running around. Like, these things are connected to those beats, like you were saying, Brian. Like, they are accentuating the beats of the script. And that's your job as the director. Understand the story and figure out the best way to tell it.
I feel also just like on a meta level, when we watch content nowadays, things that feel more like content than movies, I think what we're missing is some of this love and attention to detail that we're identifying in this scene. When you film a scene against the volume and you kind of have just some unimaginative shots because there's not a real room that we're actually doing blocking in, and there's just not a physical environment with which to like have your actors like have props, have tangible things to work with. You do get this flatness, and I just think this scene is so tactile, so full of physicality, and I think we're missing that sometimes in a lot of the content we consume nowadays.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hard agree. That's why it's great to study the classics, like Fight Club. I highly recommend pick a scene and then study it to death, study it frame by frame. You're going to learn things. You're going to understand why those decisions were made. Yeah, I love this. I love this movie.